a little bit about my family's history and my history here in Manhattan Beach. This was a lot of fun project to do. I know Heather's gone through this as well and done hers, and I know Steve's gone through this. It was a lot of fun reaching out. My whole family got involved. My mom, who lives in South Dakota, was very active in sending me photos. My brother, who lives in West Covina, he had all of their yearbooks and brought them over the other day, and my family was digging through my yearbooks. I have my daughter here, Nicole, who is getting ready to go back to college here in a couple hours on a plane, so she wanted to come hear her family story. And so yeah, it was really a cool experience.
Let me show you. It's kind of,
You can do the arrows too.
Yeah, I'll go with arrows.
The arrows are better because you don't have to scroll.
Perfect. So yeah, so that's me. Get the ubiquitous pier shot out of the way right up front. I love the pier. Obviously, we see a lot of it. This was part of the most fun part for me was going back and looking at my grandparents. I have more pictures from my mom's side of the family, which is the Wright and Blumke side of the family. And then I have very few of the Drury Fournell side of the family, my dad's parents. But the pictures you see here are primarily my mom's parents, the Wrights, Edgar Wright in the lower left there, and Ruth Blumke, lower right there. Turned out, which I didn't realize, they were seniors together at Fairfax High School. They had 2 yearbooks. Both yearbooks we went through this week, and we got to see the notes that they wrote to each other in each other's yearbook, which was really cool. From the reading, it was hard to tell whether they were dating yet at that point. You know, I mean, obviously it was a more conservative time, but it looked like something was going on in the notes they wrote to each other. But it wasn't completely clear because it was 1934. They didn't get married until about 1939. So it was a few years after high school, obviously. But it was really great to dig through those yearbooks. And the other thing we learned about seniors in high school in 1934, their favorite term was apparently swell. Every single signature or note was swell guy, have a swell summer, you're a really swell athlete. So that was the big term apparently in 1934. So, but they met, they lived over in West LA, kind of near National and Sepulveda. And that's where my mom grew up, and my uncle Ralph. And my mom told me a story this summer, which I thought was really interesting, or this winter when she was here for the holidays, that I thought was really interesting. My grandfather was in the Navy, went and was overseas. He was in the Pacific, and he was on a ship at Iwo Jima, in fact. And while he was overseas, apparently they were planning to build the 405 freeway. And my mom was telling me the story about how my grandmother wrote him a letter, how worried she was, because apparently the 2 competing plans were, one competing plan was west of Sepulveda, and the other competing plan was east of Sepulveda for the 405. Well, their house was east of Sepulveda, and she was very worried, while he was, of course, off at war, that their house was going to be demolished for the 405 freeway. Fortunately for them, it turned out they picked the plan that was west of Sepulveda. And so I thought that was an interesting story, both about just LA, but also about the kind of stresses that a spouse could be under while their husband was off at war. And now my grandmother was dealing with this idea that their house might be plowed under. So the Wright and the Drury and Fournell families, like I said, I have very few pictures of them. My grandfather, Harry Wright, was born in Sweden. Immigrated to Maryland and where my dad was born in Hagerstown, Maryland, and then moved to Los Angeles over into the Mar Vista area, right off Culver and Inglewood, when my dad was a young boy, 4 or 5 years old. And they grew up, and my brother, or my dad, my uncle, my aunt all grew up there. And Helen Drury, I don't have much background about her at all prior to being married to my grandfather, but both of them worked at Hughes Aircraft for their whole life, as well as my aunt worked there. My grandfather, Harry, was a senior machinist and tool maker, and just an amazing craftsman. He could build anything in his shop. In fact, he built my brother and I for Christmas one year a sailboat, an actual full Naples Sabbath sailboat for Christmas that we learned to sail in Marina Del Rey. So an amazing guy. And like I said, worked at Hughes for his whole life. He was a bit of a storyteller, but he claimed he worked on the planes that Howard Hughes flew when he did his transcontinental record attempts, but we weren't really ever able to verify whether that was true or not. So that's the grandparents, and then my mom and dad, Harry and Luella Fournell. I just found out that Margie Queen here went to Santa Monica City College at the same time my dad did. But my mom, like I said, grew up in West LA, went to University High School. My dad grew up in Mar Vista and went to Venice High School. That's my dad up right there at Venice High School. He was a big swimmer, and then went to Santa Monica City College and played water polo and swam there as well, with another local resident, Don Rohr. And they were friends and in fact reconnected back in Manhattan Beach when they both moved to Manhattan Beach. And then this is just pictures of my mom and myself at 1 year old, and this is right around the time, oops, oh shoot, I don't know what I did there, sorry. Right around the time that we moved to Manhattan Beach. Most of these pictures were not Manhattan Beach. These initial pictures, these were still over in West LA where they were renting at the time. And so that's my parents initially. In the early days of Manhattan Beach, this is my uncle on the right there with an early surfboard that he had. This is still in West LA with me on his shoulders. And then that's the Wright family on the left there, Blumke. My great-grandmother, Nana Blumke, right here, who was from Germany, grew up in northern Germany and immigrated to Los Angeles or Long Beach initially, sometime after the war, or actually probably before the war, I would imagine. And then down below, this is the first years in Manhattan Beach, or this is my first day of kindergarten. Pictures in Manhattan Beach. In fact, those of you who were here at one of the prior pioneer meetings, Carol Glover gave a presentation on her family history. That's her front yard right now. She owns the house I grew up in. She and her husband lived, and so that's her front yard. That's me on my first day of kindergarten at Ladera. And then lower left is with my best friend at the time, David Mead. And that palm tree in the background, I just drove by it on the way the other day. That palm tree now is 100 feet high. And thankfully, one of the few palm trees still left on 26th Street where I grew up. Many of them are gone now, but they have those huge, amazing, tall palm trees. That was one of them back in the day. So this is just my extended family, my immediate family. Upper right there, my brother Jim lives in West Covina today. My sister Nancy, who's about 6 years younger than I am, she lives in North Redondo. She has 4 kids. My brother has two kids. Both went to one went to Redondo High, one to PV High. Both graduated and out working now. Nancy, my sister, has 4 kids. One is a senior at Redondo right now, and 2 that are middle schoolers in Redondo and an elementary school. My mom in the middle, my other sister, Robin, who is 20 years younger than me. She was born while I was in college. She lives in South Dakota, which is where my mom lives now. She lives with her in South Dakota. She's spent more and more time in South Dakota over the years and ended up liking it so much that she moved there in with my sister Robin, and then that's me on the left. And my brother and I with 2 awesome bicycles on Christmas morning, which I wish I had that bike again, because that would be an amazingly collectible Schwinn bike these days. So,
Stingray.
yeah, the Stingrays with the shifter in the front, the slick on the back, the banana seat and everything. The ape hanger handlebars, pretty great. And then of course at Disneyland in front of It's a Small World, which must have been an early year of It's a Small World, I guess. I went to Ladera Elementary School. So, and there's, I got Tracy in there. So, Tracy L's lower left.
Nice.
Another, and so one of the things at Ladera that was, that one of my great memories is obviously the ramps you can see. And one of the prime roles you could get as a student at Ladera was ramp monitor. And that's what Tracy is right there, and that's her sash, where she's the one that got to yell at you to not run on the ramps. The other thing I remember out in Ladera was the playgrounds at that time. They had asphalt for play areas, but for the part that at normal schools would be grass, you had just beach sand. So all the playgrounds were beach sand. So one of the memories I have, enduring memories I have, is that my bed was always filled with sand, not just from the beach, but from school, from recess, and constantly trying to sweep the sand out of my bed.
That's nuggets right there.
Playground?
Yeah,
Closed off now?
yeah, that was our main. That was probably our main
That
playground.
was sand?
That was all beach sand on the side closest to Sand Dune,
Yeah.
which is still like the dog park area.
Exactly.
There was never grass on it. Yeah. That's my first grade picture. Miss Williams at the time, but many of you may know Diane Sweeney, who is a local resident. That's Diane Sweeney actually now, her married name. And this was, I think, her second year teaching. My daughter Nicole in the back here, and my other daughter Lauren, who's 23 now, a couple years older, both had her as kindergarten teachers at Grandview, which was an amazing experience for me. I got to see her at the beginning of her career, and the last year, Nicole's year as a kindergarten teacher, was her year that she retired. Wow. So it was really great. I got to speak, go to her retirement event, speak at that, and also, of course, one of the great memories with Diane is you see her, or used to see her, every year, every summer at the beach at Marine Street playing volleyball with her girlfriend.
I just saw her last week.
Yeah, exactly. So she's
Playing.
still playing. Yeah. So that was like a tradition. Every summer you go to the beach down Marine Street and you see your first grade teacher there. It was a great experience. These are some of the fondest memories I have of growing up in Manhattan Beach. Just the tracks, as we used to call it, right, before it became the Greenbelt.
Still the tracks.
Yeah, still the tracks, right? Exactly. That's it. Marine Street in the lower left, that's where we went to the beach. And somebody had pictures of this when all these guys started skateboarding down Marine Street all in a big group. I'm not sure you'd get away with that today, but that was one of those kinds of great experiences. Lee's in the upper right there on Marine Street was a bar, burger restaurant, surf mat rental place where we got all our candy and stuff. That's a publicity shot in the lower right. I don't know where that came from, but it's a really cool old publicity shot from Manhattan Beach with right at the Marine Street Lifeguard Station, looking at the pier in the background. And just the memories of going to the beach, junior lifeguards, spending virtually every day of every summer at the beach because that's where your friends were and that's what you just did. And beyond going to Little League games and other things, that was what we did. Also fishing at the pier was a big thing we did. We talked about Boy Scouts in our Weeblo troop. We built drop lines. Was a project that we did about wood, and I used that drop line at the pier for years afterwards, fishing with my friends for surf perch off the pier. And so that's a picture of my son. He's gotten into it, and we go down there occasionally, and it's just a great morning activity. Go have breakfast afterwards, and so on. And then the two old guys, that's from a high school photo project, but you got the one guy with his transistor radio and the other guy with his freeway bag, which who knows what's inside that he's drinking on the pier there. South Bay Wheelman, I'm an active cyclist, and so I'm a member of the South Bay Wheelman now, but I put this in here because of the legacy of that club. Many of you have probably known Ted Ernst, who was the founder of the South Bay Wheelmen 60 years ago. He founded the Manhattan Beach Grand Prix 56 years ago, which is the second longest running professional bike race in the United States. And Ted's still around, lives up in PV, sharp as a tack, really active, just a great guy, and a great storyteller. If you ever get a chance to run into them. And lower pictures are all of the kids' bike race, which still goes on. It's one of the most popular parts of that bike race is after the race goes on, the kids get out there and do the bike race, and that's me getting beat on the left by that cute young girl who I just could not beat at the finish line, but I still got a trophy in the lower right there. My brother and I. So,
Everybody wins.
Everyone got a trophy, right? Yeah. I still have that trophy. I have that trophy, but my son broke it, so it's glued back together. And there's current South Bay Wheelman up in the upper right there, up in PV. One of the things we did a lot growing up, and I know many probably other did, was camping. We did a lot of car camping, a lot of road trips, and then as we got older, we got into backpacking. So we did a lot of. So these are some old pictures. Have a ton of pictures from camping, but this is on the upper left. One of my favorite pictures of my mom. With waking up in the morning, freezing cold, with the sleeping bag on her. That's at Chickenfoot Lake up off Mosquito Flats. If you've ever been up off 395 below Mammoth, that's a great trail head and a great hike up there, and that's where that was. In fact, that's the picture in the lower left as well. Is us getting ready to go from that parking lot with a whole group of people, including a couple friends of ours. And then the lower right picture was from was a cool picture my sister made. That's us in the upper left at Yellowstone at Old Faithful with the picture in front of the sign. And then when she went back, I think this is 2012, she went back. Yeah, 2012. and she recreated the picture with her kids, which I thought was really cute, you know. So that's her in that pretty much the same spot, although I think it's not exactly the same spot because I think we're significantly closer to the geyser in the early pictures, which you're not allowed to get as close as you are anymore, so as you could back then. But yeah. Manatee Beach Little League, I played a lot of sports growing up, and so I had, thankfully, some cool pictures from Little League, and the ones in the upper left I think are kind of neat, because those are O'Donnell Field, which isn't there anymore. That's where O'Donnell Hall is now in the parking lot. But also what's cool about that picture is that team was coached by Wilbur Drake, who many of you know from the Historical Society. He grew up down the street from us, around the corner from Tracy. And he was just a fabulous guy, fabulous coach. For years afterwards, he would still bring beef jerky he made to my parents for Christmas, you know, and be in our stocking and stuff. And so just loved going by his house. He was the only guy, he had the coolest thing of anybody, that when you're an 8-year-old boy, he raised worms and grubs and wigglers, and he had a shed in his back with drawers full of worms for fishing. They sold, I think, to people for fishing. And so the coolest thing as an 8-year-old is go in there and check out all this drawer of worms to show you. So, and then we had a great Little League All-Star team in '72 that went to the state championships in San Bernardino in the lower right. And we got this really cool city proclamation from, there was Joan Donville, Jason Lane, Michael Sweeney.
First female there.
Hank Cashin was the city clerk.
Sure.
And I can't read all the other names. So yeah, but then you got pictures of all the old. What I really like about it is the pictures of all the old landmarks: Maricosta Auditorium, the old city hall, the old fire department, etc. So. And then one of the things also that was that we were really into, that my dad, who was on the lower right there, and Don Rohr, who's on the lower left in that picture, and then I think in the back is Becker. I think it's Stan Becker, the Becker's Bakery in the upper left there. Was they helped establish getting this Junior All-American Football League started up in Manhattan Beach, and we're very active in running that for many years. And so this is one of the first years. All the teams were named, like the Guppies and the Seas and the Breakers and the Sharks and the Waves and so on. So I think this is probably either the Guppies or the Breakers in the left there. That was one of the first years I played. That's on Maricosta Field at the time, and just was a great experience for many years. You see us playing PB in the lower right there and so on. Typical same rivalries that exist today. Like my high top Johnny Unitas cleats in the lower right there, right? It's classic. Went to Center Junior High School after that, some great families here. Bill Dewar on the lower left there is a family many of you probably know as well. Rob Bates in the middle. Many of you may go to Bates Chiropractic, his business on Highland in downtown. He's right in the middle there, great athlete. Apparently they were basketball squad champs at the time. Lower right is one of the great experiences of my life. Was in the fall of '73. I was selected as one of the five actually, because there was a girl from Begg Junior High as well, 5 students to go to Culiacan, our former sister city. So we went as an exchange program to Culiacan for about 5 months from in the fall of that year. And so those are the 4 students that went, and then the lower 4 students are the 4 Culiacan students who came here and lived here for a whole year. And so Jaime Esquera in the lower left there was a student who lived with my family, and they stayed the whole year. We only stayed half a year because apparently the law was if you went more than a half a year, you had to repeat your grade. So none of us wanted to repeat 8th grade, so we went for half a year. But it was a fabulous experience to, to think that 13 years old, going to Mexico for 4 months into as an exchange. What's that? Oh, Culiacan, Sinaloa. It's down. It's about 200 miles north of Mazatlan, in Mexico. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, that's our former sister city many years ago. They used to be Parque Culiacan, right, which is a park that they renamed it Bruce's Beach, or Bruce's Park or something, a number of years ago, but that was named after that. That's our former sister city. My wife is still very involved in our sister city program. Our sister city now is Santa Rosalia, which is in Baja, which is also a fabulous, beautiful city that she's traveled to with a couple of my kids a number of times. And she's going actually again in February. So.
Did you keep in touch with Jaime?
Jaime I'm still in touch with. He's an attorney in Mexico City. He has a beautiful family, very successful. And I think he has 6 kids, beautiful, beautiful family. And we still exchange emails and Facebook posts and stuff, and I keep track of him. And he's doing well. And so, yeah, good question. I went to aviation high school. Those of us who lived on the north side of town would go to aviation. Those who lived on the south side would go to Maricosta. Heather is an aviation grad. Tracy's an aviation grad. So it was one of the great things I remember about aviation was the fact that as a combined high school between North Redondo and Manhattan Beach kids, we had 2 crosstown rivals. The way we looked at it is those of us who went to Manhattan Beach, when we played Maricosta, that's who we wanted to beat, right? So lower right there, that's who we would want to beat, because those were the guys and girls that you went to junior high school with that you would compete against. And my friends who were from North Redondo, when we played Redondo, that's who they wanted to beat, because those were the kids they went to junior high school with. So it was a great experience. It was a great school, and we had a great time there, I think. Yeah. It was closed in 84? 82, yeah.
Are the aviation sports records in the gym?
I don't know where, if any of them are.
Northrop Grumman
Yeah.
in the hall.
Yeah, they're in somewhere. But they're top secret now. You can't see it.
When they tore it down, they took everything to Redondo High.
Oh, so the records might be there?
Well,
Could be.
and there's a lot of stuff that was just left as trash.
Yeah, in fact, I know that's the campus there on the upper right there. A number of my friends at the time they were demoing it went over there and grabbed bricks and things like that, so on. Yeah.
Yeah, Bill, can you give a perspective? You may not know the answer to this, but at that time, we really needed 2 high schools. Was the population of the kids just so much greater at the time?
As I got on the school board, one of the things I got at one point was some enrollment records from going way back, and we have about 6,600 students in MBUSD right now. That includes some permits, especially from Hermosa, who go to Maricosta, but it's about 6,600. At one point, I remember seeing a number of like 9,000 students. So it had dropped significantly. And at that time, it was a high school district. So it was a South Bay Union High School district. It was Maricosta, Redondo, and Aviation as a district. And all of the city districts were only K through 8. So Manhattan Beach was K through 8, Hermosa was K through 8, and Redondo was K through 8. And then I guess at the time, once enrollment dropped enough, they couldn't justify sustaining 3 high schools. And then they went to, and I remember the whole, and Tracy, you remember it too, I'm sure, and Heather, that whole debate about which school to close, right? And there was a whole lot of, I'm sure there was a whole lot of pressure on to talk about that. I mean, I can't argue.
Aviation was the newest.
It was the newest campus. It was the newest facility.
It was worth the most.
It was worth the most. I think it was the most. It was worth the most from a commercial real estate perspective, and because it was on the border, the boundary between those, and also, like I said, it has split constituencies. So I got to believe that the constituency for retaining Costa was probably had more, Manhattan support than the ones for
It was
retaining
right next
Redondo.
to STL too.
So yeah. So many of us are still a little bit. I always bring it up. Every board meeting I can, whenever we talk about. I always try to bring it up aviation, right, Heather? I try to,
Gone but not forgotten.
Gone but not forgotten, exactly. So, yeah, so a little bittersweet. And then I went to El Camino. I spent 2 years there, and 2.5 years there, and then 2.5 years at Cal State Northridge, and graduated there. Then went back and got my master's, my MBA at CSUN in the evening. Finished that in '89. Played football at El Camino. There's lots of Redondo, Hermosa, Manhattan kids in these pages here. And that was a great experience. I loved it. It was really and the other thing about about school that I remember was just the deal I got. El Camino was free. All I paid for was books.
Yeah.
Cal State Northridge, I paid like $120 a semester, literally. So I got my bachelor's degree for probably $5,000, including room and board, out at Northridge. So. But I definitely wanted to bring in, my mom had a business in town for many, many years. There's a typo on the top, the title there. It was 1988 she started her business, sorry. And she started it in downtown Manhattan on Manhattan Avenue in a retail space down there. she quickly realized that her business, Wells Quilt Basket, which is a hobby business and it's a passion business for the primarily women who are into quilting, didn't work in a retail space like downtown Manhattan because she had customers who'd come and stay all day or half a day, and they need parking for long-term parking, and she'd teach classes, and they would come for classes, and that was a big part of how she drove her business. So she moved she was about 1.5 years, 2 years downtown Manhattan, then she moved on to Sepulveda, and she was on Sepulveda for 14 years in the shop, kind of next to Patterson's Cleaner, right, where Grow Market is. She was in there for 14 years at Llewellyn's Quilt Basket, and had classes. Again, she had more space there to set up classes, and these women would bring their sewing machines in, teach classes. She would sell the materials and patterns and all of that. She would have, there's a whole quilting guild network within the South Bay and all over the country, frankly. And so these quilters all know each other's stores, and they travel between them, and they host, like I said, classes and events. And so that was really the way she built her business. And then ultimately, she wanted even more space. So she moved to the pictures on the left there. That was on Aviation Boulevard in Grant. It used to be a motorcycle shop at the time before when she rented it. And we converted that, and that allowed her to build an entire dedicated classroom in the back, which was really great. And she had a lot of space back there to expand and build out and run classes. And she had that for another 9 years until 2011 when she retired. And so those are some of the pictures of her store and her customers, and she's still actively quilting in South. Oh yeah, she's in South Dakota. She's still quilting. She's got a network of quilters there and stores there that she visits.
I bet she has a good collection of antique quilts.
She has some antique quilts. She's never been a huge collector of antique quilts, but
Really?
antique quilts are an amazing, if you ever get into it, are an amazing experience.
I have a few, my sister-in-law.
Do you? Yeah, they're just incredible. Like whether they're Amish quilts or whether they're old farmers' quilts, where you look at the quilt and you realize that that's the farmer's shirt, work shirt that was made in the quilt, and that's the daughter's dresses that were converted into a quilt. And it's just incredible when you look into some of those old quilts. My dad, as I mentioned, I think inherited the craftsman gene from my grandfather. So did my brother. It skipped me, apparently. But my dad was a big woodworker. He had a big wood shop in his garage in 26th Street over there. And but then ultimately, after college, he went up to this is in Port Townsend in Puget Sound, and there's a school up there called the School of Northwest Boat Building. And he went up there and learned to be a boatwright and to work on wood boats. And part of his plan was when he was going to retire, he was going to work in the boat shops or the boat yards either in here, and then they bought a house in Port Townsend. He was going to work on the boats there because Port Townsend is where all the boats that go up, fishing boats that go up to Alaska in the summer months for fishing, they come back in winter there and get repaired. And so there's a whole bunch of fishing boats. In fact, that one on the lower left is a fishing boat and it's all wood boat. They caulk with cotton. They don't use, they don't put any materials. They actually put cotton. That guy's with a hammer is malleting the cotton in between the planks of the boat, and that's how they keep the boat watertight. So pretty amazing, beautiful craftsmanship, and that was something that he was really good at. These are the years, my bachelor years. I came back from college. I lived down here. There's Tracy's brother Rand. L's in the upper right there. So I got both L's, friends of mine, in the slideshow. Lived at 132 First Place for many years. Down there with roommates, and it was just a great time of my life. As anybody who was in their 20s, living in Manhattan Beach with a little money in their pocket, you couldn't beat that life at that time in your life. So. And then my MB today, as I said, I'm on the school board. I've been on the school board now for 10 years. I got another couple years. It's just been one of the great experiences of my life. I'm sure Steve would say the same thing about his service in city council. With whether it's being able to hand out diplomas at Maricosta to 600 graduates every spring, which is just the most positive energy you're ever going to feel in your life, is being at a graduation like that right every year. To the memorial we had for the two employees of the school district in the city that passed away in Las Vegas this last fall, as well as the hurricane relief that we collaborated with the city on and with the whole community to go down to Houston. Just a great experience. The float, the Santa's float. I've been on Santa on the float for a couple of years. That was one of my favorite pictures of the Domino's guy who wanted to get on the float and say hi to Santa with his 2 pizzas. And then I'm also very active in AYSO, on the AYSO board, and I'm the youth referee administrator, so I'm a referee. And so those are some of the youth referees we train. Of course, their first thing they want to do is give a red card out. And then this is my family today. Nicole in the back, an 8th grader at the middle school, and I have a senior at Costa this year. So I have one going to promote from middle school and one going to graduate from Costa this year. And my wife Gretel, who is very active in Sandpiper Juniors. She coordinates the Sandpiper Juniors organization. She has a board of probably 15 or 20 young women from around the South Bay, who every year they do a broad range of charity work around the South Bay, and it's just a fabulous organization. And she's so passionate about that Sandpiper Junior organization because she loves working with all those young women every year, and it's a really self-directed organization by these young ladies. And that's it. That's good. Thanks.